And welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Pulse of Fins Nation. I'm your host, Louis Sung, and unfortunately, my good friend Ron Caniff got some situations going on, so he will not be joining us for this show, at least not for a little while anyway. However, that being the case, that does not mean that we don't have a show to do. So, plenty of stuff to talk about, plenty of stuff that happened last night as the Miami Dolphins defeated the Cincinnati Bengals, as well as the dramatic fashion that it actually happened in. That was a lot of fun. Not only that, there's definitely plenty of stuff going on in the world of Fins Nation, not the least of which is, of course, the whole Desean Watson disaster, or shall I say? So we'll get into all of that stuff. We will get into your comments and your questions as we get on with the show. But before we go ahead and get too far into that, I want to just go ahead and very quickly thank our sponsor of today's episode. That is Thrive Fantasy. If you're wanting to get into the fantasy sports world but don't know how to get started or what to do with it, you can just go ahead and jump into Thrive Fantasy to make things a whole lot easier. With Thrive, all you have to do is focus on the top tier athletes, the ones that even the most casual of sports fans know by name, and you can choose 10 out of the available 20 players to build your lineup. Each prop is assigned a fantasy value for the over and the under on how likely it is to hit. And if you can hit the most props out of all the other competitors out there, you will win a share of the prize pool based on which contest you choose to enter. Some of the prizes are higher, some of the prizes are lower. It's up to you to decide which one you want. They have over 140,000 guaranteed in prizes up for grabs just for week 1 of the 2021 NFL season. So make sure you're keeping an eye out for that. And overall, they've awarded over $4 million in prize money. And Thrive's featured $100,000 guaranteed contest. It's only $20 to enter. So what are you waiting for? The first place winner takes home $20,000. So that means that even if you don't win the most points, you still have a really good shot at taking home a significant sum of cash. So just use the promo code 5FINS when you sign up, and they'll match up to $100 on your deposit. Or you can just go ahead and follow the link in the description. You can download the Thrive Fantasy app on either the Play Store or your whatever the iTunes is, because I'm an Android user myself. So you can go ahead and visit www.thrivefantasy.com. Get started. You can sign up and prop up today. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get right into it. My good friend Ron Caniff, even though he's not here with us today, he did go ahead and leave a big old comment thread for me to follow along with. And my good friend Manny, who is the producer of this show, once again, big thank you to him. He's a very underappreciated member of the 5 Reasons Sports crew. So Ron basically asked that he's basically making the suggestion that there are 8 potential wide receivers that the Miami Dolphins could keep on the roster, and he gave his list. So he's putting in Will Fuller, Devontae Parker, Jalen Waddle, Albert Wilson. He's keeping Jakeem Grant. Mac Hollins makes the team. Preston Williams makes the team. Kirk Merritt, and after the drastic performance he put together last night, he also makes the team. So he's basically giving the Miami Dolphins 8 wide receivers. Naturally, some of them would play special teams, so that kind of makes it a little bit easier to swallow. But you guys left your comments behind, and we're going to go ahead and jump right into that. So go ahead and scroll down just a little bit here, Manny, and highlight the first one you see here. So from CLR says that he should keep Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, and Waddle, Wilson, Hollins, and Merritt if they keep 7. And then Preston Williams should be put on the injured reserve. So now, Ron also made a follow-up whether or not we should keep Grant, and CLR basically wants to trade Jakeem Grant for an offensive lineman. So obviously that does come with some interesting ideas. So with Jakeem Grant, what could you potentially get for an all-pro kick and punt returner? Because that's what he is. It's not like, oh, he was a Pro Bowl and the fans voted for him. Jakeem Grant was voted by some very high-ranking people to be making it as a special teams. So if I am the Miami Dolphins, I am going to see if I'm going to trade Jakeem Grant, and people are saying that $4 million is too much for Jakeem Grant. Why would that be too much for Jakeem Grant? See, everybody likes to point to the drops that Jakeem Grant makes and that one long pass that he dropped, and it was a very bad, and mind you, it was a bad drop. I'll even give you that. But we're pretending that Jakeem Grant does things and makes mistakes that other wide receivers do not. We're going to give Preston Williams a pass for having, what is his problem exactly? Actually, he technically has 2 problems. Preston Williams has a problem that Jakeem Grant does not have. The problem that they share is that they both drop a lot of passes. And in the case of Jakeem Grant, but he is at least available, which Preston Williams cannot say the same. So if you're going to do that, then basically what you're admitting is that you want to keep Jakeem Grant based on the idea that Jakeem Grant is somebody who is available, that he is faster, that he has more, shall we say, he fits the offense that the Dolphins are trying to put together better. Now, if you're worried about him dropping passes, okay, I understand. But he is not going to be the primary target for the Miami Dolphins this season. He is going to be the punt returner / kick returner, which means that Jalen Waddle, who everybody is saying, oh, he can do the job just fine, he no longer has to have that issue. And that is the problem. That has been the sticking point for me this entire time. I do not want to see Jalen Waddle out there taking hits, getting pounded. Do you remember what happened the last time the Dolphins faced the Cincinnati Bengals? Let's just go into that real quick. So if everybody remembers, is a very infamous little GIF that happened with Coach Flores. What happened is that Jakeem Grant went back to return a punt. And instead of waving a fair catch, maybe you could argue he should have waved it for a fair catch. So what happened was that some guy, I don't even remember who it was that pounded him, but basically Jakeem Grant took a massive hit. Like the dude just absolutely clobbered him, flattened him, and Jakeem was seriously shaken up for a little while there. And Brian Flores came from the sidelines to basically rip that player a new one because he was that upset over what happened. So that's the kind of thing that you think about. And like you don't want Jalen Waddle to take that hit because you are under the assumption that Jalen Waddle is going to be doing a lot more stuff on the actual offense than anything that Jakeem Grant would do. So $4 million that we're going to save if we get rid of him, is it really worth it? If it means that Jalen Waddle gets more snaps on offense where it actually matters? Because first of all, Tua's rapport with Jakeem Grant is better than anybody wants to admit. And not only that, of course, the special teams aspect of it. There's no reason not to keep Jakeem from that perspective. Preston Williams, on the other hand, he's always hurt. He's never really available. Now, he has a rapport with Tua too, at least from what we saw from last season. That one touchdown that actually ended up with him injured, that's something that I don't necessarily want to see so much. It's basically an issue. So what I'm going to go ahead and do here real quick, I'm going to highlight here for Chris Adams, who put something in the chat here, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight his comment real here. So Kai Locksley looked pretty good last night too. I mean, he looked all right. He looked decent. I can think of one thing that I saw last night that I didn't appreciate was how quickly he dropped that pass. And it's a very difficult situation with him. There's very little room for like extra guys, if you know what I mean. Because already Ron is basically making it so there's 8 different players. There's already 8 guys that Ron's on his list. That's already a lot more than we expected. We can't keep Kai Locksley too. So already the Dolphins have parted ways with Khalil McClain. They've parted ways with Robert Foster, who is a wide receiver with an injury settlement. So that's something that they're going to have to consider if Kai Locksley is worth keeping on the practice squad. That's the best that the Miami's going to be able to do, because there's nothing that Kai Locksley did that did not show up better from other guys. Like, for instance, I'll throw Malcolm Perry out there. Malcolm Perry had himself a heck of a game, especially more so than Kai Locksley. So with that in mind, I'd go ahead and run with that before I went with the other thing. So let me go ahead, and I have Ron in my DMs here. He's basically saying that he will pop in if there is time after he's done. Ron is basically dealing with a contractor, if you didn't get here at the beginning. So Ron is basically dealing with a contractor. He's doing some demolition work at his house. So that's something that we are waiting on. And we are going to continue to get more of your comments. Make sure that you leave a comment in the comment box below or in the chat box as we are live. And we are going to continue going down this list of tweets. So make sure that you're keeping an eye on that. Now, next thing we're going to go over here is this next tweet from Buddy Thomas. So thank you, Buddy, for your contributions. So I'm definitely keeping Fuller, Waddle, DVP, Wilson, Williams. Williams has been really good when healthy. I'm okay letting Grant go. Way too many drops. Otherwise, not sure. But I want those 5 all day. All right. So same thing we just went over. Preston Williams is getting a pass for dropping a lot of passes. Why? I don't know. I don't understand it. I guess it's because of just the raw potential that he has this upside. And I'm on that boat. I get the upside aspect of it. I want Preston Williams to develop and become a star, but I'm not going to pretend that the drops are not an issue. I'm not going to pretend that this is not a thing. This is something that is very much a thing with Preston Williams. Is one, his availability, which he is lacking in, and number two, he does have drop problems. So I can't ignore that. So I get why you're saying that, but I don't agree with it. From Alex Lozano, Williams is out, IMO. We go with 7 receivers: Fuller, DVP, Waddle, Wilson, Grant, Merritt, and Hollins. Okay, so you're going with Kirk Merritt, and he makes it over Preston Williams. Honestly, Preston Williams could, and this is something we're not talking about very much. And this is the idea that Preston Williams, if nobody claims him, which I'm almost sure that somebody would claim him if he wound up getting released. But if by some miracle some team decides they don't want to put in a claim for Preston Williams, maybe they're concerned about the same thing, is that he's never available. If that is the case, then what could happen is that Preston Williams could be on the practice squad with a veteran designation. Anything that's more than 2 years this is under the normal rules. Under the normal rules of the practice squad, if you have accumulated more than 2 years of NFL experience, then you are technically not supposed to make it onto the practice squad. They do give normally 2 designations for players who are more than 2 years, which means Williams could take one of those. Now, for this season, they have extended the practice squad. They're carrying over the COVID-19 rules. So they are extending the practice squad to 16 total players. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I read the rules correctly, then it is up to 6 different players that can have more than 2 years of NFL experience. Preston Williams could take that spot, at least until he's ready. Now, you could also roster him. You could put Preston Williams on the initial week 1 roster, put him on IR after that, and then you can stash him for 3 weeks. And then you can just sign somebody else who may or may not have made it. So that's the situation. Now, I'm going to go ahead and bring up what Young Lion 04 said. Trade Wilson before getting rid of Grant or Preston. All right, Young Lion. What I'm going to say is I understand what you're saying, but I can't agree with it. And the reason why is because Albert Wilson and Tua Tagovailoa had themselves such a terrific rapport before his injury. Basically, the moment that Wilson ended up starting to hobble a little bit, they basically redshirted him and said, "You're not practicing anymore. We're convinced you're good and you're staying." And I'm okay with that because I know what Albert Wilson can do when he's healthy, and I would want him to remain healthy. I don't need him to prove anything. As far as I'm concerned, he is a lock to make this roster, and for good reason. He is perfect for what Tua Tagovailoa does best. He is perfect for what this offense needs. And I even said, going back to even last season, if Wilson had not sat out because of COVID-19, you might have seen a lot more production from him. So in a very strange sort of way, the fact that he sat out the 2020 season and now he's back for 2021, so he didn't accrue that season on his contract. Now we're going to get to see Albert Wilson joining up with all these other guys. And now that's going to make the offense, this is probably one of the strongest things we've seen in a very long time. Everything that we saw with the starting offense in practice and in training camp and very briefly with the preseason, I don't think that's an accident. And mind you, we're not even seeing in them at full strength. We didn't see Devontae Parker. We did not see Albert Wilson. We did not see Will Fuller, who hasn't even been talked about yet, because holy smokes, these are like the top 3 wide receivers, and we didn't even get to see them function yet. And yet Tua had the offense humming along like it was no big deal. And again, this is against mostly starter caliber players. Now, the Chicago Bears, you can argue, okay, they're pretty good on defense. The Atlanta Falcons, not so much. But they moved the ball very well. They kept it. They kept the offense humming, and it was a wonderful, beautiful thing to see. And that's without even adding the top 3 weapons yet. That's without adding the top 3 weapons yet. So I'm not going to trade Albert Wilson for keeping Jakeem Grant or Preston Williams. If I had to choose, and I'm sure the extra yard folks would be so proud of me right now. If I had to choose between Jakeem Grant and Albert Wilson, I'll take Albert Wilson. That's my stance on that. So next thing we're going to go over here. So I see Chris Adams. I'm going to highlight his next comment here. He's not a keeper, but the practice squad after we lose Williams because Merritt is in there. Perry and Williams won't make the waivers. No, Preston Williams, probably not. I'm not convinced that Malcolm Perry won't make it through. The only one, I know for a fact that New England had their eye on Malcolm Perry. I know that for sure. But I'm not convinced that he would not clear the waivers. I think someone would eventually claim him if he made it to the squad. I think somebody might eventually sign him to their active roster. But I'm not convinced that he won't clear waivers. Not yet. Because what the thing with Malcolm Perry is that his whole pull, the hype for him, if you will, was his versatility. It was what he offered as a gadget player. Because he was at Navy, he was a running back. He was a quarterback. He did some wide receiver stuff too, very briefly. But his pull was that versatility. And I think that I still think his best shot to make this roster is as a running back. I don't know why the Dolphins have decided to move on from that and basically make it so that he's just a raw wide receiver and nothing else. That honestly makes me upset, knowing that he can do these things. Maybe they're just hiding the whole Wildcat stuff behind closed doors. No one's talking about it. They're pretending it's not a thing. If that's the case, fine, I get it. But the thing that we're going to look into is that Malcolm Perry getting through waivers, I think, is much more feasible than Preston Williams. Ninja Viking 407, thank you for your contribution to the show with your comment. I still like Grant doing returns. Scared of putting in Waddle for that. Yes, I agree. That's exactly my point. I don't want Jalen Waddle back there doing returns, especially knowing what kind of a beating Jakeem Grant takes on a regular basis. So that's definitely what I'm going to be working on here. Now, next thing we're going to go over here as Manny scrolls through the many different things here. I see one: trade Grant for used socks, cut Williams, and keep Merritt. Okay, so basically we're cutting them both instead of keeping. Okay, so let's see. That means that you're getting rid of Preston Williams and you're getting rid of Jakeem Grant. So that leaves Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, Albert Wilson, Jalen Waddle. So that's 4. So who was number 5? Can you scroll back up, Manny, real quick? Because it's hard for me to keep track of all these names sometimes. Mac Hollins is 5. And so basically you're making Kirk Merritt your 6th wide receiver, and you're just saying that's all the Miami Dolphins need. Well, if that's the case, then how confident are you that all these guys are going to stay healthy? How confident are you? And by the way, don't forget, Will Fuller is not doing things right away. Will Fuller is not even going to be on there very long. So he's week 1. He's not he's not active anyway. From another Manny, Manu Marquez, 1986. Trade Merritt. He's too good. He's going to get scooped if they put him on the practice squad. I don't think you can get anything for Kirk Merritt in trade. Like, the best that you could do is maybe see if you could pull an Isaiah Ford with the New England Patriots and see if you can get a 7th round draft pick out of him. If I'm going to trade anybody, and again, I'm on record for saying this, and I'm not, and this is me once again saying I am not advocating a trade. But what I am saying is that Devontae Parker would get the most out of the Dolphins if they traded him. So what that means is that if you traded Devontae Parker, you might get a 3rd rounder or a 4th rounder out of him. But that's the max you're going to get. Preston Williams, you might get a 5th. Jakeem Grant, you might get a 5th. Probably more like a 6th. Kirk Merritt, I doubt it. I think that the best bet you're going to have is to keep the guys that you know for sure can actually contribute. So Zachary Allen, thank you for your comment. Dolphins cuts Matt Skora. Yeah, I just saw that, and I was actually in the process of updating the live tracker on 5 Reasons Sports. You can actually check the tracker out for yourself at 5reasonsportsnetwork.com. Actually, I think it's just 5 Reasons Sports. I'm sorry, I got the domain wrong. Yeah, 5reasonsports.com, and you can check under the news category. The tracker will be there. It is pinned to the front page. So all the cuts that the Dolphins are doing, they're going to be updated either by me or they're going to be updated by other contributors on the network. The Matt Skura thing, honestly, I'm very disappointed in how that whole thing turned out. I was really, really hoping that he would bounce back. And it wasn't even the yips. That's not the problem. The yips were not the issue. What the issue is that he never really beat out Michael Dieter for the center job. They want youth. They want their young draft picks to pan out. And for all the crap that we've given Michael Dieter over the past 2 years, he has looked decent at center. He's looked okay. He hasn't looked like a superstar. He hasn't exactly lit up his blocking assignments or anything like that, but he's been all right. So with that in mind, I had a sneaking suspicion that as soon as the Dolphins traded for Greg Mance, that was going to be the case. That I had a sneaking suspicion that Mance was going to be the backup center from this moment on. He has a history with George Godsey from the Houston Texans, and I had a really sneaky suspicion that Matt Skura's time in Miami was up. This just confirms it. Now, what this means for the Dolphins as far as his contract, if I'm not mistaken, I'm actually going to look it up right now. So the Dolphins signed Matt Skura to a 1-year deal, and that deal had $400,000 on it that was guaranteed. So they're saving, not a whole lot. It's not like it's a huge cap saving. He wasn't getting paid that much. So by cutting Matt Skura, what they've basically done here, and forgive me because I'm currently in the process of looking up the information here because I don't know all the things by heart. They're basically saving about, I'm pulling it up now, $1.5 million. They have about $200,000 in dead cap. So it's not that big a deal. I'm just disappointed that it didn't pan out because I thought Skura had the potential to be really, really good. It wasn't the yips that got him. It wasn't his bad snapping that got him. It was just he wasn't doing much. Chris Adams says, let's trade Jakeem Grant and Devontae Parker to the Packers for a second-round pick. Win-win. Okay. I am sure that Aaron Rodgers would appreciate the likes of Devontae Parker. I'm not sure he'd appreciate Jakeem Grant because if he does drop some passes, I don't know how he's going to react to it. But let's just go for that for a second. So if we're going to assume that Devontae Parker is worth a third rounder, which is what I'm assuming anyway, because again, I think that he can get a lot out of it, and you're going to trade Jakeem Grant along with him. So it's a package deal, 2 wide receivers for a second round pick. That would probably be a good deal, but this is again assuming that Preston Williams stays healthy. This is assuming that Mac Hollins, and I think he can do it. I know a lot of my constituents disagree, and I understand why, because of all the players that the Dolphins have, the most proven, talented receiver who plays his way out of that whole group is Parker. So I would say that if you can guarantee a second rounder, then maybe I'd do that deal. But again, it all boils down to what actually matters for the team. Can Mac Hollins be Devontae Parker's replacement? I don't know. I think he has the potential because he's a big dude. He can be physical, but I need to see more of it. He's the kind of guy that you like having at the back end of your roster to back you up, but he's not somebody I necessarily want starting if you have somebody more talented. So that's the thing about it that everybody needs to remember. I'm not advocating the Dolphins trade Parker. I'm saying that of all the wide receivers Miami has, Parker would get the most. Cap for Life, glad to see you're excited to be here, dude. It's always nice to have you. So we're going to keep on going here down the list here. From Colin Wood, I would keep 7 with Williams, the odd man out. So another vote for Preston Williams to be gone. So another vote for Jakeem Grant to stay on the roster. That's very interesting. I do see another comment from Chris Adams that I want to address. It is regarding that the Dolphins should keep only 3 running backs so we can keep a wide receiver and don't have to lose anyone. So that's an interesting idea. Considering that the Dolphins are going to be a running back by committee team, I don't see why they wouldn't remain fresh. It's not like we're going to have we wouldn't have a specific guy who's starting every single game. Now, get Myles Gaskin, Savon Ahmed, and either Patrick Laird or Jared Dokes. My personal vote is for Dokes right now, and that's just me. And honestly, I would prefer if the Dolphins I would still prefer the Dolphins keep 4. So, because remember, you have something going on here. It's Malcolm Brown. He's there. And if you want Jared Dokes to make the 53-man roster, you probably have to keep 4 running backs because you are going to have Myles Gaskin. You are going to have Savon Ahmed. And the Dolphins fully guaranteed Malcolm Brown's deal. So they're not going to give up $1 million+ just to say goodbye. I don't care about you anymore. That's just not going to happen. So it's a fully guaranteed deal. And I don't want it. I'm not good with that. So from MD, Parker is worth more to Miami than another team based on injury history. Keep Merritt and Perry, release or an injured reserve Williams. Sorry, Jakeem, but you're a one-trick pony, and Miami has 3 guys that can return kicks. Okay, so who are those 3 guys? Again, we have Jakeem Grant. So it's Jakeem, unless you're not counting Jakeem Grant, the only guys that I can think of that you're referring to are Jalen Waddle, who we've already established I don't want back there returning kicks and punts and getting absolutely clobbered by special teams gunners. Malcolm Perry, who was, all right, nothing special, not all pro. And the only other one out there is Noah Igbongani. And I got news for you guys, and this is going to be very disappointing, and I'm very disappointed too. Noah Igbongani looks like he doesn't want to play. That's just my personal opinion. He was last night. He was slow. He looked like he looks confused as a corner, and as a special teams guy, he just looked lethargic. That's just my opinion. I don't think he's in it right now. I think there's something going on in his head, and I think that's what's causing him to struggle because he looks worse now than he did last year, and that's very concerning for me. So I don't want Noah Igbongani doing that. From Corey Bundukamara, I hope I said that right. Michael Dieter gets blown off the line against second stringers. Bears number 90 Blackman had his way with him. Atlanta's number 79 Slayton was 2 yards in the backfield every play. Okay, that's why I said that Dieter looked decent, not necessarily good. It's not like he definitively earned the deal. The Dolphins basically handed in the starting job and said, listen, dude, we're going to give it to you. And maybe that's what Alfredo Arteaga was talking about last night, that he felt like the Dolphins didn't give Matt Skura a fair shake, that they desperately wanted Michael Dieter to have that job. And if that's the case, again, I understand it. They drafted him. They want him to pan out. And as a center, he's better than as a guard. So if that's the case, I get it. I understand it, but I'm not really all that interested. Bring back Tim Ruddy, Manny. Manny, if you want to pop in anytime, you can, dude. I'm starting to need some water here. That's what I'm saying. So, from Rafa Miami, nice to have you, Rafa. IMO, I think you have to keep 4. I'm assuming this is running backs. With just 3, if an injury happens, then you have to scramble for one during the season. Not ideal. Well, apparently, Latavius Murray might be on the market really soon. So, that's an option for you, I guess. Let's see. Cap for Life says he believes Michael Dieter has earned it. I wouldn't say he's earned it. I would say that he's the starter by default, just because nobody took it from him. So we'll see if Greg Mance over time ends up taking that spot. I think that's a possibility. I think that Greg Mance might actually end up taking the starting job at some point. That's just me. Chris Adams says that I think we need to take Noah and put him as a backup to Eric Rowe, groom him there. Needham is here to stay. So Nick Needham, let's be honest about something. Nick Needham, I used to call him the Nolan Carroll of the modern era. Because if you remember Nolan Carroll, if you remember him, he was picked on a lot early on. But as time went on, we started to appreciate him more for his ability to come in a pinch. And he was decent. He was okay. Now, Nick Needham, on the other hand, he was picked on a lot harder, and he got better a lot faster than Nolan Carroll did. Let's just get that off the bat. Nick Needham is like the ultimate extreme best case scenario. So Nick Needham, there was something in him that Brian Flores saw that literally no one else did, because pretty much every single person, and I remember people I respected were looking at Nick Needham was like, he doesn't got it, man. It was that bad in his rookie year in the preseason. And all of a sudden he comes out of nowhere and starts just balling. So either you give credit to the coaches for coaching him up, or you give credit to him for just being more talented than we saw. He just got it all up in there. But as for Igbongani being a safety, I don't know. I feel like we're already having a hard enough time getting him to learn corner. Switching him around now, it just kind of feels like this is just going to be like a surrender move. But we'll see. If you put Igbongani at safety, then you're assuming that he'll be able to cover tight ends better than he will wide receivers. I don't know. Maybe he's more he likes to be physical with tight ends. That's what it's all about. So it's an idea that we can explore another day, but for right now, they're just going to work him out at corner. From David Kruk, make Perry running back 4 and use him as a safety valve in the run pass offense, and on special teams as a returner, and trade Jakeem. Again, another trade Jakeem. Again, assuming that you're going to get Jakeem. I want Malcolm Perry as a running back. I've said that, and I've been on record with that. The Dolphins don't see it that way. It kind of annoys me the Dolphins don't see it that way, because quite frankly, I feel like that's their best shot to keep him on the roster. Dolphins don't see it that way, which is very disappointing. Okay, we are already at the half-hour mark. Now, what I'm going to do very briefly is I'm going to discuss, and I know that if Ron were here, he'd be like rolling his eyes right now, but I'm going to discuss it anyway because I feel like it needs to be addressed. let's talk about Desean Watson. We're going to finish it off with this, and I'm just going to make it very brief, and I'm going to make it very clear on what my stance on this whole thing is. Desean Watson has several allegations, very bad allegations, that the FBI is investigating him for. He will not play in 2021, regardless of what team he is on. I do not see the Dolphins trading for him. Michael Lombardi came out with a tweet that says that they are not looking into this. And as far as I'm concerned, Tua Tagovailoa is the starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, and he will be for the next few years to come, at least. So that's my official stance on the Desean Watson stuff. That's all that needs to be said. So that's all we're going to do for today. Half an hour has passed. We will be back at the very least next week after to go over the Pulse of Fins Nation one more time. And again, a big thank you to Thrive Fantasy for sponsoring this show. We will see you all next time on the Pulse of Fins Nation. Keep the comments coming. You can follow at Pulse Fins Nation on Twitter, or you can follow my personal account at Louis D. Sung, and you can just go ahead and you can send the comments over there. You can also comment down below in the YouTube comment section. I'll be keeping an eye out for those. And as far as everything else is concerned, just keep the comments coming, guys. Remember, this show is all about you guys. This show is about what you guys have to say. I interact with you. This show is for you. That's why it's the Pulse of Fins Nation, and you, my audience, are Fins Nation. So with all that being said, thank you all so much for joining me, and we will be back next week at least. Bye-bye.